Amina was the only daughter of the king of Boza, a small kingdom surrounded by dense forest. She was not like other daughters of kings. Carefree and spirited, she loved venturing beyond the palace walls, seeking out the adventures her family warned her against. While others spent their days in the safety of the kingdom, Amina explored the dense forest, climbed the tallest trees, and swam in rivers that were said to be cursed. Her favorite place to visit was the strange river at the edge of the village, a place forbidden to everyone in Boza. The villagers said it was haunted, but to Amina, it was beautiful. Its waters glittered in the moonlight, and its banks were alive with strange, colorful flowers. One evening, after sneaking out of the palace, Amina made her way to the river. She had just knelt to dip her hands into the cool water when a figure stepped out from the trees. Startled, she looked up and saw a man who didn't look like he was from her village. He was tall, with flawless skin and eyes that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. His body was adorned with beautiful ornaments, necklaces of gold and silver, rings studded with sparkling stones, and bracelets that jingled softly with every movement. Curiosity sparked in Amina. She stood and approached him without hesitation. "Who are you?" she asked, her eyes fixed on the shimmering jewelry. "And where did you get all these beautiful ornaments?" The man smiled, his teeth gleaming unnaturally white. "From the Ayanga marketplace," he said in a deep, melodic voice. "A place where you can find treasures beyond imagination." Amina's eyes lit up. "Ayanga? I've never heard of it. Is it far from here?" "It's closer than you think," he replied cryptically. Before she could ask more, the man turned and walked into the bushes. Amina followed, but by the time she reached the spot where he had disappeared, there was no trace of him. The next day, she told her friend Halima about her strange encounter. "He was so handsome," Amina said, a dreamy look in her eyes. "And the ornaments? Oh, Halima, I wish you could have seen them. He didn't look like anyone from around here." Halima frowned. "Amina, you shouldn't go back to that river. It's not safe. What if he's not human?" Amina laughed and waved her friends warning away. "He was just a traveler, Halima. I'll go again and see if I can find him. Maybe he'll tell me more about the marketplace." That evening, Amina returned to the river. The air was thick with mist, and the usual hum of the forest felt quieter than normal. But her excitement outweighed her fear. As she approached the riverbank, she saw him again, standing with the same confident posture. This time, however, something about him seemed different. His eyes, which had seemed so inviting before, were now pools of deep blackness, empty and cold. Amina didn't notice. She walked toward him, her movements slow and almost trance-like. He smiled, and though it sent a chill through the air, she couldn't look away. That night marked the beginning of her strange relationship with the man by the river. She began to see him regularly, always at the same spot, always at night. He never told her his name, but his presence was magnetic, and Amina found herself drawn to him despite Halima's warnings. Weeks passed before Amina began to realize something wasn't right. She noticed how he seemed to disappear into the shadows without a trace, how his skin would sometimes shimmer like mist under the moonlight. One night, as she stood by the river with him, she finally asked, "What are you?" The man's smile widened, revealing sharp teeth. "You already know," he said softly. The realization struck Amina like a blow to the chest. He wasn't a man. He was something else, something unnatural. Terrified, she ran back to the palace and vowed never to return to the river. But the nightmare didn't end there. A few weeks later, Amina discovered she was pregnant. She confided in Halima, her voice shaking as she explained everything. They sat by the river under the dim light of a crescent moon, the only place Amina felt safe enough to speak. "I didn't know what he was, Halima," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I thought he was just a man. But now, I'm carrying his child. Halima gasped, gripping Amina's hands tightly. We need to do something. We have to tell someone. No, Amina said, shaking her head. He warned me not to. He said if I told anyone, he would hurt everyone I love. The shadows of the past weeks closed in around them, and Amina knew there was no turning back. Amina couldn't stop trembling as she clutched Halima's hands, her mind racing with the events of the past few weeks. The man, or rather, the thing, that she had thought of as her secret companion was no human. And now, she was carrying its child. A sudden rustle in the bushes made them freeze. Slow, deliberate footsteps followed. Run, Amina whispered, her voice barely audible. They scrambled to their feet and bolted toward the palace, too terrified to look back. But Amina knew she didn't need to. She could feel it following them, its presence cold and heavy. The days turned into weeks, and Amina's growing belly became impossible to hide. Whispers filled the palace, and soon, her father demanded answers. Who did this to you? The king thundered, his anger shaking the walls of the throne room. Speak the truth, or face my wrath. Amina knelt before him, her tears falling freely. I don't know who he is, Baba. He comes at night. I never see his face. Lies, the king roared. You shame this family with your deceit. He ordered her confined to her chambers until she confessed. That night, alone in her room, Amina sat in the corner, clutching her swollen belly. The air grew colder, and the faint scent of decay filled the space. Then, it appeared, the shadow. It moved fluidly from the corner, its form tall and formless. Why are you doing this to me? She whispered, her voice trembling. The shadow tilted its head, as if amused. Its voice, low and resonant, echoed through the room. Because you are mine. Amina screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the oppressive darkness. The shadow dissolved, leaving her trembling and alone. Desperate to save her friend, Halima sought the help of a forest healer. The old woman listened to Halima's tale and nodded gravely. This is not just a spirit. It is an Ogbanj, an entity that claims what it believes is its own. It will not leave willingly. What can we do? Halima asked, her voice quivering. The healer handed her a small, carved stone and a pouch of herbs. Burn this in her room. When the spirit appears, strike it with the stone. But beware, it will not go quietly. That night, Halima crept into Amina's room with the tools in hand. Amina sat on the bed, her face pale and hollow. He's coming, she whispered. Halima lit the herbs, the acrid smoke filling the room. Moments later, the shadow appeared, its form angry and chaotic. The walls trembled, and the air grew thick. Halima gripped the stone tightly as the shadow lunged at her. She screamed and threw it, the stone striking the shadow with a blinding flash. It let out a piercing wail, shrinking and writhing. Say its name. Halima cried. Amina closed her eyes, the name rising unbidden from her lips. Adiku, she screamed. The shadow shrieked one final time before vanishing into nothingness. Months later, Amina gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She named him Amodi, meaning a free man. The healer assured her that the curse was broken, and the child was untainted by the spirit. Life in the palace slowly returned to normal. Amina smiled again, though she still avoided dark corners. And at night, when she held her son close, she whispered, "You are mine, and no one else's." And for the first time, she felt free.